Bipartisanship is dead. Democrats murdered it. And on Tuesday night, Donald Trump threw one hell of a wake. Hey, everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. This is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, it was not a State of the Union address. It was a regular old presidential address, or ROPA. I guess we're going to call that now. Because he hasn't been in office the traditional year that it takes for a State of the Union address. That said, gentlemen, what got me about this speech were two brilliant kind of extended moments that shone a light on what Democrats stand for now, which is really nothing. They only stand against things. And well, let me just quote Donald Trump, who early on in the speech said, "I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people, the Democrats, sitting right here, will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer for these astronomical achievements. It's very sad, and it just shouldn't be this way. So Democrats sitting before me for just this one night, why not join us in celebrating so many incredible wins for America?" And Scott, Trump was right, but he was incomplete because Democrats would not even stand up in recognition for the wife and daughter, or the wife and sisters of a murdered young girl. They would not stand and applaud for the 13-year-old boy who has survived pediatric brain cancer and was made an honorary Secret Service agent last night, even though his dream is to be a police officer. There were so many instances of just American goodness that had nothing to do with partisan politics that Democrats would not stand up and recognize simply because Donald Trump is the one who pointed to these things.
I think one of the things I realized watching this speech was that President Trump may be the first one to essentially stipulate the way the Democrats are behaving, to acknowledge it and to deal with it as it is. Most other Republican presidents have made an effort to, display equanimity, to engage Democrats in a positive way, to call out opportunities anytime they existed for bipartisanship and cooperation that did exist. And I think President Trump took a different tack in saying, let's just be honest with it. It doesn't exist. It's not here anymore. And so I noticed very early on that the president seemed to be speaking only to the people on his left, which is where the Republican section was. And so at first I thought he was just kind of favoring the teleprompter on the left and, just a personal physical preference there. But then I realized this was very intentional. He was just ignoring the Democrats on the right side of the room. And then when he did acknowledge them, he was almost derisive and sneering and sarcastic and very direct about their failures. He didn't pull his punches at all when he talked about the Biden administration and the things that the Democratic left had done. I made a note to myself while I was watching it and said it this way: it was a sneering political speech intended to taunt the Democrats and to hold them up to public scorn, such a barrage of derision that it will be very difficult for Democrats to refute point by point, which was likely his intent. And so by sneering political speech, I don't mean that as an insult to the president. I think it was an intentional strategy that he adopted where he realized there's these folks, as he said in the passage you quoted, are not going to be happy if you hand them a lollipop and pat them on the back and say, job well done. They are going to be unhappy about the state of America as long as necessary until they regain power, which is what they want. And so I think Trump displayed a kind of realpolitik about this where he was saying, let's just deal with the facts on the ground as they are. And I don't have to kowtow to the Democrats or kiss up to them. Let's just acknowledge what they've actually done, how they're behaving right now, and the contrast between that and the very vibrant, active agenda that the Trump administration has been pursuing to clean up the detritus of the Biden administration. And so, it is hyper-political. On the other hand, it's also a very honest evaluation of the way politics is in Washington, D.C. Pull no punches. Don't try to gloss it over. Just treat it the way it is and treat them with what they deserve.
And to be fair, the Democrats started it last night. They went in with this with their little paddle signs and heckling and all the rest. It was terrible behavior. So whenever a president gives one of these addresses, State of the Union or otherwise, my least favorite part of the speech, and I've been watching these things since Ronald Reagan was president because I was a weird little kid. My least favorite part of these speeches is what I call the laundry list portion, where the president lists all the money he's spent or all the money he's going to ask Congress for. You know, we spent $800 billion last year at my direction restoring sight to blind kittens. And this year I call on Congress to spend $1.2 trillion to restore sight to blind puppies. And it goes on forever and ever and ever. It's the worst part of the speech. What Trump did last night was brilliant. He went through the Doge findings of all the wasteful spending, all these progressive left-wing causes, for lack of a better word, even though they hardly amount to that. And Bill, I got to share this with you. Since you didn't watch the whole speech, you're going to die. And these are Trump's words. He said $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens, $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. Oh, I have to interrupt myself for a second. Whenever Trump last night said inclusion, he said inclusion, like Seinfeld saying Newman. It was just
Newman.
Brilliant. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is, Trump said. $8 million to promote LGBTQ plus in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million for something else. $8 million for making mice transgender. These are all real, Bill. And this is the stuff that the Democrats want to keep. They won't applaud the cancer kid, but $8 million for transgender mice, that is their holy ground, Bill. And Trump highlighting those absurdities, I thought, was some of the most brilliant political judo I've ever seen in my life.
Let's just very quickly make a quick kind of historical analogy. We all remember the Gulf War, where we launched an air war. This is the Persian Gulf War. We launched air attacks for 6 or 7 weeks, and finally, when the time came to launch the ground attack, we had been so prepared and we'd softened up all the targets, and the war was over in 100 hours, just broke through, and just we're moving so fast that all the Iraqis could do was converge on a vacuum. Donald Trump has had 4 years to plan this campaign of his 2.0 presidency. I had a chance yesterday. I didn't get to see the speech because I was coming back from a speaking engagement, but I had a chance to talk to somebody who's access to some fairly high-level people like Pam Bondi and things of this nature. And they told me that this team, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Pete Hegseth, and so on, have been working together for about 6 months now with the if not the expectation, then certainly the possibility that Donald Trump could win. They are moving so quickly that it's impossible for anybody to keep up with them. And when you talk about the entire event, as a laundry list of things, it becomes almost unbelievable because of the rapidity of the motion. And this business of holding up little paddles or whatever you want to call them, one of which says false and the other one says Elon steals, is not a good look for Democrats. And this idea that Elon steals is like, really? Is that the narrative you guys are going to go with?
He's
that
stealing
Elon
from
Musk,
the trans butterflies
right,
or whatever.
That's right. That the richest man in the world is actually stealing money from the U.S. Is that going to be your counter narrative? And and I think one of the things that has not been mentioned about all of this foreign aid stuff, Steve, is that how do the people of Lesotho feel if we give them $10 million for LGBTQ activities and not for food? That in itself is a little weird. But the main point I want to make is just very, very simple. I think since they had so much time to think this over, I think they realized that if they started listing the fraud in USAID people would accept it because we don't like our money going to this kind of nonsense for foreign countries, right? But I think the genius of this, and I think we're going to see this, is that I think they led with USAID, which is a very small part of the federal government's expenses.
60 billion.
Yeah, because they wanted to show the American people that money was being wasted on a mega scale, and then they're going to show how much of our tax money went into Democrats' pockets. If they'd led with that, the entire government fraud thing would have looked like a bipartisan attack. I think that the genius of what they're doing is that they're displaying all of these absurd expenditures of money that have been going on, so that when it comes time to reveal, now let's talk about some things that didn't get spent overseas. People already believe in overwhelming numbers that the federal government is corrupt and, at the very, very, very least, certainly not serious about keeping track of how we spend our money. And I happen to think that all of these ridiculous expenditures are softening up the battle space, so that when it's clear that the federal government is in fact spending this kind of money without any oversight or control whatsoever, when it comes time to start tracing some of these dollars into the pockets of Democrats and some Republicans as well. The first segment that we did on Doge was talking about Bill Kristol. You brought that show.
Yeah, that's my segment.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be the big denouement for this thing, and I'd like to apologize for all of our readers, especially our members, for me using the term denouement in the course of an American conversation.
It's my understanding there will be no French. Oh, it's my turn. Let me wrap this up. Folks, I got an idea how badly this was going to go last night for the Democrats when, in the hours before the speech, 23 Democratic senators, that's half of them, read from the exact same script. They did the exact same presentation, supposedly to their constituents, but in the age of social media, somebody could and did put all 23 videos together in the same box, and I wish I could remember who to give credit to for this. Somebody pointed out that this looks like this effort looked like it came from 20 years ago, before social media, when you had to broadcast the same message broadly, right? So you get all your senators, and maybe they were reading from the same script, or at least they had the same bullet points, and that would establish your reach. But in the age of social media, and this is the phrase I wish I had thought of that this other gentleman did. He said, "Authenticity is the coin of the realm." Yeah. And seeing 23 Democrat senators all reading the exact same script, almost with the exact same pacing, as you can see from that conglomerate video that was put together, it rang so inauthentic. And when you can't even stand up and applaud for the cancer kid, I think that establishes a different kind of authenticity, and it's one that the American people are going to reject. And apparently they did. There was a YouGov poll conducted in the minutes and hours after last night's address that showed 76% of Americans who watched the speech approved of it, and just 23% didn't. And that means at about a 40% base for Democrats, you had about a third of Democrats going, yeah, that was good stuff.
It's an incredible number.
Yeah. All right. That's your right angle on that, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.